In the readings today, God continues to reveal his heart to us. For him, it's very important. We can come to know God through just our human reason, and that's great. We know that there must be a creator. We can know many things about from this world about who God must be. But for him, it's not good enough. It's not good enough just to have worldly or human knowledge of this creator being outside of this world that must exist. But instead, he wants to reveal his very heart to us. And so in the first reading, we have this story of Abraham, who is coming before God. There's this city which is a city of wickedness, and it's also the city where Abraham's relative, Lot, and his family reside, Sodom and Gomorrah. And so Abraham asks, what if in this great big city of wickedness, there's only 50 good people? What kind of God are you? What is your heart? Will you still destroy the whole city because of its evil if there were 50 good people? And God says that he would give mercy not only for 50, but for 30, for 20, even for 10. And we can even go further to imagine even probably just one. And God does have mercy upon Lot and his family and saves them from the great destruction. What we see is at the heart of God, it's true. His heart is mercy, not cheap mercy, but real, authentic mercy. We continue on in the psalm where it says, on the day I called, O Lord, you answered me. God isn't far away. He's not kind of busy with something else. But every time that you and I pray, he hears us. And he desires to answer us, to hear our prayers and to answer them. In the gospel, Jesus digs down even deeper. Not only is there more to God than just the creator or just some kind of master being or some supreme being, but when the apostles ask Jesus, how are we to pray? He tells them to say, pray, our Father who art in heaven, our Father. He wants us to relate to God, to see him as a father, as a good father, as a true father. For us, that's earth-shattering, right? And I don't know, for me anyway, I don't think about that enough when I think about God. God the Father, that I can pray, our Father. I can have a relationship even more deeply than I have with my own dad, with God. That's something. And Jesus goes on to say, ask and it will be given to you, search and you will find, knock and the door will be open to you. We hear all of these things, and there's way more as God wishes to reveal his heart to us. This past week, and on Friday in particular, we have been celebrating the novena and then the final day of the novena, the solemnity of St. Anne, our parish patron. And one of the other ways that God reveals his heart is the love that he has for the saints, the love that he has for his sons and daughters who are close to him, not only in this world, but even in heaven. It even is true that in heaven, God allows these saints to continue to intercede on our behalf. He allows them to continue to pray, to continue to ask him, to seek, to ask, to knock, and to do so on our behalf. That it gives God great delight and great pleasure to answer the prayers of his holy ones. For St. Anne in particular, our parish patron, I've been so amazed with our novena and with the final Mass. I know a number of you were able to participate in some or even in all of the days. I've been so amazed to hear your stories of what St. Anne has done, what her prayers to God has done for you and for those who you have known. For me, new to the parish, this is my first novena, and it was a great way to start being here with this novena of Masses. One of the questions that I had, how is it that St. Anne's Church in Hamilton has a relic of St. Anne? How is it inside of that reliquary, it says in Latin, it says, this is the bone of St. Anne the mother of the Blessed Virgin Mary, right? How do we get a bone of St. Anne? How did that come about? I don't know, maybe you have heard this story before. I was really amazed when what I came across is Googling it and trying to find out how we have the relics of St. Anne. And so I want to share that story with you, and if you've heard it before, it's good to hear it again. If you haven't heard it, I've included it in the front page of the bulletin if you want to read it in its fullness. We have this story mainly through the writings of Pope St. Leo III, so it holds some weight. This isn't church teaching this particular story. It's not church teaching, but it is there, and there's something to it, I think. So this is basically what had happened according to the writings of Pope St. Leo III. He writes that after about 14 years after Jesus had died, there was a great persecution of Christians in Jerusalem in the Holy Land. And what happened was that Mary Magdalene and some of the other Christians, they were forced out of the Holy Land. They were actually put on a boat, pushed ashore without a sail or a paddle, left to die. And as they knew this was coming, one of the things that they wanted to safeguard and protect was the body of the grandma of Jesus, the mother of Mary, St. Anne. And so they kept that body with them, and when they were forced into this boat, they made sure that they took the body of St. Anne with them as they were set out to sea in order to die. But they didn't die. The waves, whatever, the sea, it took them to the south of France, and they landed at a place called Apt, A-P-T. And it was there that they then got off and carried on in their prayer, their Christian way of life. It was there in the caves that they entombed the body of St. Anne. And also a small church was built over the place where St. Anne had been buried. You can still go there today, and there's a church of St. Anne there in southern France today. However, after this, in those first centuries, in France as well, it was difficult for Christians. There were religious persecutions, there was poverty, there was wars, and for centuries, hundreds of years, that little church they had built up had been destroyed, and there was basically nothing left except the memory that here was a church at one time. At one time it was believed that in the caves underneath was buried the body of St. Anne, the grandmother of Jesus. And so it wasn't until the time of Charlemagne, where there was peace in that region over much of Europe, and where the faith was flourishing, and they had the opportunity to build a new magnificent church to honor St. Anne, the mother of Mary. And so the structure was undertaken, they built the church, and it came the day to consecrate the church, Easter Sunday, 792 AD. Charlemagne himself wanted to come. I guess he had a devotion to St. Anne, and he himself wanted to be there for the dedication of this new, beautiful church. As he was there, the ceremonies were going on. There was one family in particular with a young boy, 14 years old. And this boy was blind, he was deaf and mute. He couldn't see, he couldn't hear, he couldn't speak. And most of the time he was very reserved, very quiet. You wouldn't even know that he was there. However, on this particular Sunday in this new church, at one point during the ceremonies, the boy got up and came right up to the front of the church. Can you imagine? Imagine some of you parents, right? If your kid walks up here, what are you going to do? You're probably going to be a little bit embarrassed and come up and fetch them. So the parents are trying to pull him away, right? Come back. And it's hard because he can't hear or see or any of these things. But he came up to the front of the church and started like, I can't remember if it says pointing or like stomping on this one particular stone in the brand new sanctuary. He kept pointing towards, and his parents tried to get him to go back. Remember, he can't see. But he insisted, and he kept on there, and it was so much so that at one point, Charlemagne anyway began to wonder if there was something more to what the message this boy was trying to communicate. And so what he had was, on the spot where the boy kept pointing and stomping, he had the workers come, brand new sanctuary, and remove the stone, dig it up, right, pull it out. And so they did, and what they found was underneath was the entranceway to this cave, to a tunnel. And so the boy was the first to jump down, this blind boy who can't see, can't hear, and can't speak. He was the first one to jump down and to lead them through this tunnel. And as they all followed after, finally the tunnel came to an end. There was a wall. But he kept pointing at the wall. And they understood that he meant there's something on the other side. And so we got the workers in again. They smashed through that wall, and the tunnel carried on. And the boy led the way, and what they found astounded them, surprised them so much. At the end of that tunnel, they found a tomb. They found a vigil light lit, had been lit already, had been lit maybe for a long, long time. We can imagine centuries. By this miracle, they found the tomb of St. Anne. When they had found it, the boy, they said there was a flash of light, and all of a sudden he was able to see, hear, and speak. And the first words that he ever spoke was, "It is she. It is she." And then they went up, and on the tomb they read what was written. It said, "Here lies the body of St. Anne, mother of the glorious Virgin Mary." And so the story of our relic that we have in this church, that bone of St. Anne, it comes from this miraculous discovery in 792 AD, where a boy was miraculously healed after first he was guided by God to find the body which had been lost of St. Anne, the mother of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And so for us, maybe it's not that astonishing if her body was found by a great miracle, that even until today, this relic is powerful. This relic, for many people, you've shared with me different stories, even of miracles, of things that have happened in your own life and in the lives of others. Just to bring all this back to the main message of the homily, the heart of God, right? In leaving us this relic of St. Anne, again, we see the heart of God. That God loves, he loves St. Anne when she was here, and her help with Mary and Joachim and all of that. And he loves her in eternity. And he allows her, even until now, to continue to call upon him, to pray and to ask for certain things for all of those who ask her or who go to her. And so what I hope is, during my time here, I hope that we will be able to continue with this spirit of going to St. Anne, our parish patron, of looking to her, relying upon her, and benefiting from the many favors and graces that she can bring to us through her grandson, Jesus Christ.